My first guest is a senior figure in the Conservative Party, having served as a government minister and party treasurer. He's a close friend of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and as Baron Marland of Oddstock, he is a peer of the realm. Lord Marland, thanks very much for joining us. You could argue that after 14 years in power, any party could suffer from some degree of disaffection with the electorate, but the Conservatives' plummeting numbers indicate something far more dramatic. And I wonder how much of the unpopularity is self-inflicted through bad policy decisions or bad behaviour by prominent Tories?
Well, that's a very big question. I mean, the first thing is you're basing your judgment on the polls, and I think it's fair to say that the polls are seldom right, as we've seen as recently as the Indian election, and we've seen in the past elections. So that's my starting point, in that the polls are giving a very mixed picture at the moment. Of course, the government's been in 14 years, and I think it's had to make some very difficult decisions. And no one really thanks you for the action that you've taken as a result of COVID, or the action you took during COVID in the end. It's very easy to blame the government for this particular issue, and I think whoever was in power was always going to be on a COVID backlash. So I think we need to look at that. Despite the fact that Boris Johnson, when he was Prime Minister, was the first country to get vaccines in the Western world, really drove the vaccine program, that we had furlough, which kept a lot of people with income, and it was a very good government response after a total initial failure by the system. It was the system that failed. So I think, but we're not going to get that. The Conservatives aren't going to be thanked for the fact that we have inherited huge debt now as a result of it, a cost of living crisis because of inflation in moving goods apart from anything else, and therefore higher interest rates to try and control inflation. So, that's the scenario, and the government will be blamed for it.
Assuming that those polls that indicate the decline, Lord Marland, are correct, did that decline?
I wouldn't assume. I'm sorry to say, I wouldn't assume they're correct. It does look like it will be a Conservatives will not be in power, but I'm not assuming any on polls.
Fair enough. So, but if there was a decline, let's say there is a decline in people's, or there is a frustration with the Tories, did that begin as a result of the conduct of Boris Johnson over Partygate, the drinks, and parties at 10 Downing Street during the lockdown? Or was it Liz Truss's, what many people call disastrous premiership with, financial decisions that damaged Britain on the world stage?
Well, I think there have been a number of seismic issues, haven't there? I mean, there was certainly the Brexit vote, which disabled Cameron's government, and then you had the Theresa May government, which didn't get Brexit done, and then you had Boris, who did get Brexit done, and then, as you say, because on his birthday they came and visited him with a cake, and it was deemed to be a party, he was thrown out, or there was a turn against him, even though it's quite amusing to read now that he is apparently the future for the Conservative Party if we were to lose power. So it's a sort of a bit of a situation. But you're right. I mean, over 14 years, you're bound to make some bad decisions of a government. Very few governments last beyond 14 years, or very few parties in power last beyond 14 years, and that's what the electorate will be asking. And it's quite easy to think about it, but you also need to think about what you're going to wish for. It's quite clear Labour are going to put taxes up. They have to put taxes up because we're spending as a country more than we're earning. We have no growth in our system. We've got very high debt. We've got a very high cost of debt. And we've got over-regulation, which is stifling enterprise at lots of different levels. So it's going to be a very difficult economy to inherit. Lots of different issues going on in the economy. And the answer is that Labour want to spend more on public service, and therefore they're going to have to put tax up.
Lord Marland, of course, campaigning euphoria is full of promises, and I wonder how much of a mistake it was for Rishi Sunak to have promised publicly to reduce healthcare waiting lines and be tougher on immigration, and then was unable to deliver on it?
Well, he made 5 promises, if you recall, one of which was getting cost of living down, which he's done, and inflation down. It looks almost certain that bank rates will come down as a result, which was another pledge he made. He made a pledge on immigration, and despite the fact that Labour have tried to frustrate him at every turn on Rwanda and having a real deterrent in hand, he's delivered on that particular issue. He has, as you say, not been able to get NHS waiting lists down. I don't think. I think that was an ambitious pledge, given that we had all the knock-on effects from COVID, all the mental health issues that people have suffered, and the other ailments as a result of it. And yes, it is fair to say that out of his 5 pledges, 3 he's achieved, and 2 he has.
I hear what you say about polls, Lord Marland, but let's say there is some truth in what ends up happening with what people are calling a Labour supermajority, with the Conservatives below 100. Are we likely to see 10 years of Labour government, or is there a way the Conservatives can claw back some popularity?
I think Labour are inheriting a very, very difficult economy. And as I said to you earlier, if they embark on high taxation and a pernicious form of taxation, which suggesting they might, higher taxes on council taxes, getting rid of private schools, or at least putting VAT on private schools. Their assault on non-doms is already and will have they're already leaving. All these sort of things will be difficult. It'll be very difficult to get investment into the country because people are nervous about this particular thing. As we've seen, house building in London is now at an all-time low because people are concerned about who is going to be governing the country in the future. If they adopt a Blairite type of economic approach, then they will get re-elected because they'll have seemed to have restored the economy and made the country a financially better place. But if they carry on with a higher tax, not getting to grips with the cost of government and things like that, then I think it could be quite a short-lived thing because the country is in a very difficult place at the moment.
Now, if we look at the past few weeks, the election campaign began with Rishi Sunak standing in the rain without an umbrella outside 10 Downing Street announcing the date, and then, of course, returning from the D-Day commemorations early to do a TV interview. When you see these kinds of things over the past few weeks, what do you make of them?
Well, I think it's rather naive, if would be a nice way of putting it, to not have factored that into the campaign. But he's done a lot of good things in the campaign. I mean, I think to his credit, he's got great energy. He's seemingly very likable. He's in the eyes of the public at least got integrity, and he's a very hard worker. And those are good things which constitute being prime minister. You inevitably make mistakes in a campaign, and it's really whether the public forgive you or not. And I don't think it's too late for him to turn it round because he's got a lot of good things going for him.
Now, you're close to Boris Johnson, and I wonder what he's been doing during this campaign. We haven't heard much from him. Shouldn't he be kind of stirring up support for the Conservatives like his hero, Sir Winston Churchill?
Well, he has been stirring up support. He's done an online social media video, and he's really now getting out there and persuading people of the merits of the Conservative Party.
Whatever the polls indicate, there seems to be not a lot of enthusiasm for either Rishi Sunak or Sir Keir Starmer. So I wonder to what degree British politics works better when you have these kind of big figures like Boris Johnson or even Nigel Farage. Do people engage more whether they like them or not?
Well, I think people want a personality. They want to kind of feel that they can reach out and touch, in a sense. And both the gentlemen you've mentioned have got that incredible ability to connect with the public. Both of them, as it transpires, are not universally popular, but are very, very popular with those that like them and have great appeal.
Now, not to like Nigel Farage too much, but I wonder what you make of him.
No, I don't know not to like Nigel Farage too much. I certainly have not. I have a regard for Nigel Farage and I admire him. I don't agree with him, obviously, on a lot of things, but I admire any politician who has the courage to stand up for his convictions and to take an awful lot of heat that he's done over the years. And I admire conviction politicians. So no, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm not an admirer of Nigel Farage. I think politics is interesting with him.
Well, exactly. He seems to be a man of the moment. Has his time come?
Yeah. Well, he'll have to win Clacton, which, there is a good chance, I'm sure he will. But I don't see the Reform Party winning a lot of seats. They'll do a lot of damage, far enough, to both parties. And there will be this initial period of where everyone thinks they're marvellous, and then you shine the spotlight on them a bit more carefully and you realise they're not quite as marvellous as they were. But I think politics is a better place for Nigel Farage, personally, even though a number of my Tory colleagues would be concerned with that remark. As I said, I think people who have conviction is what public service and what politics is all about. The more of them that have it, the better.
Well, Lord Marland, I was wondering where you think the Conservatives should head now. Should they aim to be a little more centrist, or is it really, is there a need to compete with the Reform Party more towards the right?
Well, I've gone on record and said I think it's a shame that the Conservatives didn't bind Nigel Farage into a right coalition. I don't mean that we should combine with the Reform Party, but that Nigel was. I saw him at a number of Conservative events. He was indicating by being there that he's interested in the Conservative Party, and I think we should have bound him in because he is a formidable figure. But they didn't, and as a result, the Reform Party is now getting some legs. What happens after the election, if and it is a big if, because one never knows. The British public are, funnily enough, very astute when it comes to choosing who they want to run the country. If they decide that the Conservatives aren't going to, then there'll be an election campaign, and we'll see what happens. Personally, I'm more centre than far right, so inevitably I'd like to see a more centrist candidate, but we'll see what the party decides.
We live in far more sensitive times nowadays, Lord Marland. We're a much more diverse society and so on. And both Reform UK and the Conservatives have faced numerous accusations of racism and those kind of issues. And I wonder to what extent those accusations are justified, in your opinion.
Well, I find that very hard to believe, given that we have an Asian Prime Minister who is a Conservative. I just don't get those accusations, if I'm honest. I think I chair a Commonwealth organisation, so I spend my whole time travelling to very diverse and interesting Commonwealth countries, of which there are 56. I don't think we're the Conservative Party. That's an accusation that can be made at the Conservative Party at all. I mean, you look at our front bench. We have a Secretary of State for Trade and Industry who was born in Nigeria. We had a Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. We've got Priti Patel. I mean, we have a lot of diverse members of our party and people who are have their hands on the levers of power.
What about the supporters of the party, though, traditionally, perhaps?
I think that the supporters of the party have selected these people as candidates. So I think that speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Well, in a few days' time, the general election's over and the race begins, if it hasn't already, for the next leader of the Conservative parties. And I guess the Tories would need to achieve something like a Sir Keir Starmer in their midst to kind of wave the flag. Is there someone who is a Keir character, if you like, within the Tory party, or could Boris Johnson make a historic return?
Well, as I said earlier, you never know what's going to happen. If you lose an election, a number of candidates come out of put their names forward, and it can be a bit of a lottery. You know, I've been involved with 4 or 5 campaigns now, and you're never quite sure who's going to emerge at the end of it. So watch this space, I think, if indeed we lose the election.
I wonder if you might just give us a prediction from your side. I know it's always a difficult thing, and you've indicated your wariness with polls, but what would you see as the potential outcome at this stage?
Well, at this stage, you think perhaps that the Conservatives are going to lose, but there's still time to go yet.
Lord Marland, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Very good to see you.